Welcome to Ted.Thomas's Retire Young and Rich, How to Buy Tax Liens and Deeds Online Lesson 6. In this lesson, you will learn from Coach Bill Williams how to narrow down the auction list, and Coach Crystal will share with you how important it is to view each property that you plan to invest in, and even what to look for when you are viewing the properties. During this lesson, you'll hear from many successful students who started out just like you. They are Ted.Thomas students who studied the program, attended the Ted.Thomas 3-day auction preparation workshop, participated in the weekly question and answer webinars with a Ted.Thomas coach, and ultimately purchased tax lien certificates and tax defaulted properties. These successful students followed the same system you're learning right now. They're here to share their success secrets and strategies with you. Let's get started.
Most of us who research properties in a two-step process, which is what I'm going to be discussing here, where we look at the most critical factors first to make a decision right away whether or not to keep a property on our list or write it off the list. So what are we looking at? To narrow the list, we want to know first, do we have enough money to cover the minimum bid? Clearly, if we can't cover the minimum bid, there's no point in keeping that property on the list. Second, is the assessed value enough to make the investment worthwhile? If the property is only worth a few $1,000s, to put a lot of energy into spending $1,000 on a $3,000 property doesn't make a lot of sense because your return on investment after expenses is not going to be very good. So my guideline for me personally, and yours might be more or less, is land that is worth at least $10,000 in assessed value, or if there's a structure on it, at least $50,000, and with a minimum bid 50% or less of the assessed value. Next, is the property in an area I want to buy? Areas that I don't want to buy in are areas that are swampy, in the middle of a desert, in the middle of nowhere, or anything else that might be slow or difficult to sell. There are some neighborhoods in the United States that are very depressed, where it's very difficult to sell a property. So I'm not going to be too interested in buying there. And if yes to all of the above, I put it on the list. And the things that I log first are the items I identified earlier as the most important to start with, which is the auction number, the parcel ID, the minimum bid, and the most recent assessed value. The first thing we want to do is search for information about the specific auction. And where are the best places to do that? Well, there's several, and we're going to show you some websites later that will help. But the county website is a good first stop. So what I did was, in my search terms, I put Tax Deed Auction Santa Cruz, California. And what that got me to was the Santa Cruz Treasurer Tax Collector. And this is the top of that page. From the Santa Cruz County Treasurer's site. Here it defines the auction dates, and further down at the bottom of the page you can see it begins to go through some questions that are commonly asked. There was a whole long list of questions that are commonly asked. It's a very good idea to read through this thoroughly so you'll have a thorough idea of all the terms and rules of the auction. So, earlier we went through an Excel spreadsheet that I used to narrow the list. This is available on Ted's Resource Center Success Club membership area on his website. And to narrow the list, there are 4 pieces of information we need first, and then we're going to fill in the rest of the sheet later, after we get close to the auction. But these 4 items are items we need to know to decide whether or not to keep the auction item on our list of properties to consider. Back to the Santa Cruz Treasurer site, if you have questions, probably the best way to contact the Treasurer is by email, and there's an email contact link on that site. You can call, and I'm sure you can get an answer that way, probably faster and more direct to email, especially if you're out of the country. Then we're going to go to the Bid for Assets website, which is a third-party auction platform. This third party handles the actual auction for the county. You are buying from the county, but Bid for Assets is managing it. And that is actually a very good thing because on the Bid for Assets site, they have a lot of links and information that make your research a lot easier. So here's the first page of the Bid for Assets Santa Cruz, California auction site. And further down the page, you will see on the right, there's a lot of links to good pieces of information that you should review before bidding at the auction. And further down the page a little bit more, you'll see more information that is important to know, including the property list. Now, you can get the property list as an Excel spreadsheet, or you can get it as a PDF. I selected an Excel spreadsheet because that gives me a live link to property information if I click on that auction ID on the left. But for now, what I'm looking for is to get the first set of information I need to start filling out my spreadsheet. And those items are the auction ID, the property identification number, the minimum bid, and the total assessed value. So I don't have to go looking through multiple websites or do any extraordinary effort other than get the auction list, because this auction company has put the information I find to be most critical on their auction list. Not all auction lists are this good. This one is. You may have to do a little bit more in-depth research to find it on some sites. This one has it very well organized. So I've taken the information from the auction list and put it into my spreadsheet. Now, if we look further down the list, there are some properties that will not meet my criteria for acceptance. If you look at the top, there are still some that the minimum bid is within my price range and the value of the property is high enough. But if we look a little bit further down, you'll see one where the minimum bid is $1,300 and the assessed value is something like $1,600. Clearly, that's failing on a couple of fronts. One, assessed value is too low to make it worthwhile. And two, the required bid is so close to the assessed value, it doesn't make it a wise investment. So you have to set your own limits. I've told you what mine are. And just go through the list and you will find all the properties that could possibly meet your criteria of being acceptable to buy.
Coach Bill Williams just took you by the hand and walked you through the steps to narrowing down the county's auction list. To review, he explained that you must first figure out what the minimum bid is, and then you must do your research to determine the assessed value of the property, the market value, what back taxes are due, and lastly, setting your maximum bid. Coach Crystal will now show you why it is essential to have eyes on the properties you're researching, whether it is you or someone you trust to evaluate the property. She will also share with you how to find and choose a reliable and trusted source to view the properties for you, if you're unable to look at them yourself. Let's jump right in.
Okay, well, let's talk about your good candidates. Finding good candidates. Well, review the list of agents who provided market information earlier. The whole point of that exercise was to get market information, but also talk to agents to see potentially who would be a good fit for helping you look at the property, take pictures, give you opinions, and all of that. But that would be where you'd start with agents. Property managers, they'd know something about real estate. Maybe you've got family or friends in the area. Or you could place an ad on Craigslist for somebody to drive by properties and take pictures. Place an ad like make money with your camera, something like that. Those would be all opportunities. So how do you decide? Well, let's see what you need first. That would help. So what do you need? Well, you need multiple photos of the subject property as well as notes about the property. Now, the notes are to tell you things and also to verify that they've seen the right property. So I would say, I want you to drive by. I want you to stop and take pictures from the curb, from the car if necessary. When at all possible, I want you to get the house number in the photo. I want you to write on the sheet the basic description. Is it a greenhouse with white trim and there's a red truck in the driveway? That's going to give me some ideas they're looking at the right property. I want them to take close-ups if there's anything that appears to be out of place, or maybe there's a problem with the roof. Well, I want them to use, number one, a digital camera. I do not want them using their phone. I want them using a digital camera where they can zoom in. Remember, I need to see close-ups because if I look at it, I might be able to tell, well, does the roof need to be replaced? Does the roof need to be patched? Now remember, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let my investor buyer, that bargain, for the bargain hunter I'm offering, is going to include the room in that deal for them to do that repair. Okay, also photos of surrounding properties in the neighborhood, the neighbors' houses, street view. As much as they can tell you, what if the picture they're taking, if they don't take pictures of the neighborhood, what if the picture they're taking at subject property, what if that is the nicest house in the neighborhood? You're going, yippee, yes. No. There's not a lot of opportunity when you buy the nicest house in the neighborhood if you pay too much for it. So what if it's a really nice neighborhood, but it's one of the ugliest houses? If the price is right, that could be a really good opportunity. If it's really a bad house, maybe it just has to be torn down. Well, the question might be, what would happen if that house weren't there? Great neighborhood, well-established, wide streets, desirable areas, schools, churches in the neighborhood. What happens if that ugly house wasn't there? But guess what? If the house is torn down, the services are still there. So as long as you can connect to the same services, that's going to be a real good opportunity. Even if there's some other things that need to be done with services, still could be a good opportunity. So that's why you need photos of the neighborhood. Also, this is something that's really important, and Ted talks about this, or it's something I know when you do a deal with Ted using Ted's money, this is something he wants. He wants you to drive by, or in this case, your on-location assistant would drive by and take photos of the sold comps. So when someone's driving by, they have the sold comps, but you want to see how the comps compare with the subject property, with the property that's on the auction list. So photos of the sold comps. And then you'll say, oh, well, there's no way this is a comp to the subject property. Or, oh, this is a really good comp. That would help you determine what your value of property might be. Okay, here's where you can take it up a notch. This is where you can make the difference. A bonus when this individual or a team of people can help you with an opinion of the current condition of the property. Now, remember, you can't inspect this property. There's only one state that I know of where sometimes you can inspect the property. And I mean like walk through it. Otherwise, you're doing this from the curb. You're on the property. Legally, it's trespassing. So you want to get an opinion from the curb. Well, how can you give an opinion of the current condition? Well, what happens if the real estate agent that you're working with is familiar with that property? And maybe they've been in that property recently, or maybe it was for sale. They might have a listing. That could give you an opinion of the current condition. Sometimes outside the exterior, you can tell the current condition is poor. But is it fixable? Okay, also an agent, or taking up a notch, someone that has possible knowledge of the property, including past sales, prior listing details of the subject property. That would give you information that others don't. So that's a good resource. Okay, taking it up a notch. Well, this is another game changer. What if you had someone that could tell you the current price that could be obtained from an investor when they were buying for all cash and closing quickly? Wow, that would make a huge difference on how you'd run your numbers. If they were confident and they could back it up with comps on what that price would be, that would make a huge difference. That's like already knowing what kind of bait you're feeding them bait. And when you can spoon feed deals to investors, that's how you make good money, the deals they want. The person that can do this, more than likely, is going to be a real estate agent. Okay, the conversation. People say, well, okay, well, how do I ask them about this? Well, remember, you went through and you talked to real estate agents before. And you graded them, and you determined if they were able to communicate, if they knew about the market, if this was an area that they worked in. So you've had that conversation. You've built rapport with them then. That's really important. Build rapport. Then you're checking your grading on communication, and the people that were forthcoming with information, they had good information. They knew. They didn't say, well, I need to research that. You asked about a buyer's list, and they kind of had this awkward pause, which means they probably didn't have a buyer's list. And if they work with investors, that's their bread and butter, and they don't have a buyer's list, You probably don't want to work with them. They're probably not very smart. They don't get it. Investors are repeat buyers. So what would you say? Well, I'd go back to some of the agents that I talked to and say, we talked about the market information, and I was so impressed with the information you provided. I'm seeing that that's, spot on. I am doing research on a tax sale, and I live outside the area, and in this particular case, I can't travel to the area, but I want to participate in the tax sale. Would you consider going and taking pictures of the properties on my list and letting me know, what their current condition is, the best you can tell, and then maybe giving me an idea of what the close quickly all cash price would be for a property like that? Because, investors, so I kind of want to think like they're going to think. Would that be something you're willing to do? That would be the conversation. Then the ball's in their court. Well, some agents, no, that's not going to be something they're going to be willing to do. But most of those are the ones that work with first-time home buyers, that work with move-up buyers, because agents that work with investors, they're kind of used to this, especially if they're doing foreclosures and things like that, because they do that for the banks. They go open up houses and take pictures and all of that to get it ready to sell. So you could have that conversation. It's just a conversation just like I'm having with you right now. It's no pressure, don't need to be nervous. And if they say that, yeah, that would be something I could do. If they say no, well, thank them and move on. But if they say yes, then you can continue that conversation. So then you've located the person that you need. Now remember, you're going to want to know where the area of that agency. If that agency covers a certain area, then you're going to give that person the properties that fall in that area. Okay, considerations. Well, the people that you ask, you want them to have the best access to the information you need. So out of the list of people or potential candidates, who's going to have the best access? Who has the experience? Who's most likely to get it right? You want people that are experienced going looking at properties, going and finding properties, because guess what? Some tax sale properties aren't the easiest properties to find. Also, who has relationships with other people that potentially would be team members that you could add to your team? And assistance when selling the property. I think those are really important considerations because it will help you in the long run if you have someone that can help fill those slots now before you select the individual. It's your choice. You get to choose who's going to assist you on location, providing the information and the assistance you need. They're going to view the properties, take pictures, provide information so you can make good decisions. So there's a real estate agent, property manager, family or friends, or someone who's responding from your Craigslist ad, and they will respond. So you choose which one it's going to be. But here's the important thing. No matter who you choose, you need to provide detailed instructions in writing. Make sure it's in writing. Discuss them with the person, but provide them in writing. So you might send them an email documenting your conversation. Ask them to verify that they understand everything. If there's something they don't understand, now's a good time to talk to them about it. They need to be aware there's a deadline. The deadline is important. The auction is coming. So the deadline's important. Delivery. How are they going to deliver the information to you? When's it going to be delivered? When does it need to be there? How are they going to deliver it? Make sure they're using a digital camera, not their phone. Your pictures will be much better. Expectations. What are your expectations? What do you want them to be able to tell you? Make sure that they are aware of that. And arrangements for payment. This should all be discussed ahead of time. If it's a real estate agent, usually their expectation is what they want for compensation. They want the listing and payment, getting the payment to them. So next, you complete your due diligence. This is where the money stuff comes in because part of it's going to be evaluating the opportunities. But you're going to finish your research. Anything else you need to learn about a property, you need to do it now. You're going to follow the information provided in Ted's other trainings about researching online and different things to consider for your research. So you need to finish that. Whatever you need to know about that property. Here's the bottom line. If people don't know and they're going to bid and they're not sure, they've maybe thought of something and they didn't finish the research, kind of like when in doubt, they chicken out. So when you start bidding, you want to be confident that you've done the research that you need to, that you have the information you need to make good investment decisions. That's how you make money. So make your final decisions about your list and set your maximum bid amount. Now, you've heard this before. Make sure you set a maximum bid amount. Do not overbid. Having no deal is better than having a bad deal because you paid too much. Every time you pay too much, you can't just simply increase the amount you're asking for the property when you sell it. The market will say, that's too much, I'm not buying it. So you're cutting into your profit. So it's better to have no deal than have a bad deal. Another important step, and this is where a lot of people, they stop before they get to this one. Show up online and bid. Participate in the auction. Again, if you find yourself saying, well, maybe I shouldn't do the auction, make yourself have a good reason. Can you explain? If you had to explain to me why you're not doing an auction when you did all the research, would you be able to do that? If you can't, it's probably just nerves and cold feet. You've done all you need to do. You're ready. So show up on online and bid, because I can guarantee you, if you don't, what's your profit going to be if you do? I don't know. You've worked that out. But I can absolutely guarantee you your profit will be absolutely zero if you don't show up and bid.
Let's take a look at what Coach Crystal just covered. Coach Crystal explained how to find a trusted person to view properties for you if you're unable to look at them for yourself. She shared with you how to locate real estate agents, property managers, friends, or family, someone from Craigslist, or even a company called WeGoLook.com that is qualified to be your eyes on the property. Ted.Thomas has been teaching students like you for over 25 years how to invest in tax lien certificates and tax-defaulted property. Even when he had black hair like you, we'll see in this next segment with successful student Ted.Thomas from Maple Valley, Washington. As you'll see, this is a woman who did not have support from her family. She attended the Sonoma County, Washington tax-defaulted property auction and was successful anyway. Let's listen in as Charlotte shares with us how she was able to purchase a property and then resell it without ever leaving the auction.
All right, so let's talk a little bit and tell people, first of all, what your name is and where you're from.
It's Ted.Thomas, and I'm from the Seattle, Washington area, right outside a little city called Maple Valley.
Maple Valley, okay, good. And what do you do in Maple Valley?
I work for Alaska Airline. I'm one of those home agents. They have a home agent program, so I'm a reservation agent. So when you call Alaska, you might get me, and I work from home.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm
I didn't
like
really do
Bob.
that. That's pretty good, huh?
I step out of my bedroom and step into my office. Yeah.
Wow, the commute isn't too bad.
No,
Oh,
I
that's
don't
great.
get into
That's great.
accidents.
Good. So you and I met, it's almost 2 years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you started learning about tax liens and tax deeds and all that. And you're in a state that sells what?
We sell deeds.
Deeds. So that means you get the property.
Yes.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about your studying and what you thought about before. I know you went to an auction, but what did you do before you went to the auction?
Not
Excuse
too
me.
much of anything.
Oh, you didn't do anything?
No, I got your program.
You're just like all of my class members. You
And
fit in perfectly.
It wasn't because I didn't want to. Part of it was lack of financing, I thought. And I just didn't get a lot of support from my husband with it.
Ooh.
And, I wanted him to say, go for it, but he didn't say that. He was kind of leery. So I didn't do anything for probably about a good 9 months. And then I was visiting my brother and his new wife in Los Angeles, and I was telling them about it, and they became very interested. And she had some money, and she said, I want to partner with you. I want to give you this money so we can go do this.
How good was that?
Yeah, I was like shocked. I was shocked.
So she was more of a believer than your husband was.
Yes.
So when did you finally up and decide to go to this sale?
Well, I knew that in Washington we had the deed stayed, and my husband works for King County, so we couldn't go to the King County auction. So the closest counties were Snohomish County and Pierce County, which are on the north and south of King County. So I decided to go to the Snohomish County auction because it was coming up next. So I did all the research, got the list of properties. Myself and my 9-year-old granddaughter went out to drive around and look at the property. She took the pictures. I told her what to get a picture of.
Really?
Yeah. And by the end of the day, she was like, "Grandma, I'm ready to go home." So I said, "Okay."
Wore the
fine.
photographer out.
Yeah,
Oh my
but
God.
she did a great job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So.
So how many pictures did you take?
Oh, that day, oh my goodness, it must have been about, well, I think she endured 25 properties that day.
Wow.
And she was done.
You did
So I
25
had
in a
10
day?
Yeah, we started early that
Man,
morning.
you're-
And we drove all day. We stopped for McDonald's.
Oh, of course.
And then we continued on. But
Yeah.
that's what she could endure. And then I took her home and went back. And my husband went with me for the rest of the properties. I think for
You
that
shamed
auction,
him
it was
into it.
like
Oh,
it
my
was
God.
like 35 properties that we finally looked at.
So you looked at a total of 35?
Yeah.
Now what'd you do, take them home, lay them out on the table, or did you write on the picture? You using Polaroid like I used to tell everybody?
No, I was using my cell phone. She was taking
Oh, great.
pictures with my cell
And
phone.
then what'd you do, talk
And
into
as
it?
she was taking pictures, I was writing some notes on, I used Crystal's guide that she gave
Oh, yeah,
us of,
good.
you know, when you're looking at properties, these are the things you need to, you know, be checking out. So I was writing on that form.
Okay, good. All right, so you could remember now when you get home, because it's hard to remember those,
Well,
isn't it?
I just numbered them. I just kept them in order of the pictures.
You guys might want to write that down, number
Yeah.
the picture, so you know
Yeah.
what, that's good, okay? All right, so so how many did you end up with on your kitchen
About-
table, so to
About
speak?
35 we looked at, and then since my brother and sister-in-law were partners, I sent the pictures to them. I said, this is what they look like.
Really?
We had a meeting over the phone, we talked about, and we narrowed them down to about 10 of what we were actually going to bid on, what our budget would allow for, and, you know, so.
Good for you, you were wheeling
yeah.
and dealing, weren't you? That's great. You were building your own little team of people on the phone, okay, good. All right, so now you went to the auction. It was a good day, bad day? What kind of day was it?
It was a good day. My brother, I flew him up from Los Angeles so he could go to the auction with me. I figured since it was kind of their money, he should be there. So he came to the auction with me. From where I live in Maple Valley to Snohomish County, it's about an hour and a half drive.
Wow.
So we had to drive all that way. And we were thinking maybe because it snowed, some people weren't going to show up, you know, or they'd be late or whatever. I think that that's one of the reasons why we didn't have any competition on our first property that we got. Because when I bought that property, or when we were the successful bidders, there was this lady sitting over here somewhere, and when we got the property, my brother went down to sign the papers, and she got up and just made a beeline straight towards me, and she says, "Did you buy that property?" I said, "Yes, we did." I said, "Do you want to buy it?"
You said that to her?
Yeah. I said, "Do you want to buy it?" She says, "Yes, I do."
She understands the four-letter word. What's the four-letter word? What's the four-letter word, guys? She got it. Okay, you're going to be okay. All right. So what'd you say to her?
I told her, I said, well, actually, my brother is the one signing the papers, so you're going to have to talk to him. Now, he doesn't know anything is going on. He's down there signing the papers, you know, at the bid table or whatever. So when he comes back up, she's leaving. And I said, we got a buyer for the first property. Now, we're just excited we got a property, and we
You
got
don't even
a
want to
buyer.
sell it now because you just want to have it for a while, right?
Buyer.
Did all this work.
All at the same time. And I
love
was
it, I love
thinking
it.
to myself, this is great. This is how this is supposed to work.
30-second order.
Now, how much did you pay for this property? What was it?
It was just a piece of land on the end of a housing development. It was a little less than an acre. It was a buildable lot. It had the water, the electricity. Since it was vacant land, there was no,
Great.
well, there was sewer in the neighborhood, so
Right.
they could have just brought it to the property. So it was assessed value at $42,000. We paid $5,500 for it. Yeah.
So you're getting wealthy fast. That's really good, huh?
Well, we were thinking we were.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so what did the woman that came running over? What was she willing to pay? You paid $5,000?
We paid $5,000. So my brother, again, I let him do the negotiating. I went to the ladies' room. I came back. They had settled on $15,000 to sell the property. So,
And you haven't left the auction yet?
I haven't left the auction yet. So we're at the auction. Yeah.
This is almost too hard, don't you think?
So,
This is really too hard.
well, we were trying to figure out why she didn't bid on the property. And what had happened was she was there to get that property because it was right next door to her house, and she wanted to build another house on it. And her partner got stuck in the snow, and the partner had the money. She couldn't bid on the property. So
That's a mess. I haven't heard that one before. That's great.
That's why we didn't have any competition. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to give you more credit than that, but you were prepared. See, you were ready. See, that's
Yeah,
the thing
we
about an
were ready to
auction.
go.
You know,
Yeah.
you talk to any of our people like Bob Schumacher or Bill or Crystal, they'll tell you, you got to be prepared at this time because you don't know what's going to happen. And wasn't Renee saying that same thing yesterday?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people, they were the long list, and they went to the necessary room at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Their number was coming up, and
Yeah.
they missed it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so did you go home then, or did you hang around, or what?
Well, after we were successful with that property, we stayed because it was another one we wanted to bid on, and we got that one too. Yeah. So.
Oh my God, you
Yeah,
are
just
really
a
winning.
minimum bid.
Yeah. And how much was that one worth?
That was $48,000. We got it for $7,700 and some change.
So it was 42, but you paid 7.
It was $48,000.
Oh,
we
sorry.
paid 7.
48. You paid
7,700.
So you're paying about 20 cents, less than 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
That's
I'll take
nothing
it.
wrong with it.
Because Charlotte was prepared and willing to go out in the snowy weather, she was able to get 2 properties at the Snohomish County, Washington auction. And she sold one of those properties before she even left the auction. These are just a few of the advantages of having a coach and mentor to guide you in the right direction. Coach Crystal was able to take Charlotte by the hand and give her guidance and direction for the auction. Next, you'll hear from another special guest, Puff Darlin. Puff is a successful Ted.Thomas student who lives in Florida. Puff will share her experiences at several different Florida tax defaulted property auctions and the knowledge she gained from each of those auctions. Puff was once in your shoes, struggling to get by and provide for her family. Once she learned about Ted.Thomas's course materials and took action, her life changed dramatically. Let's take a look at how she's doing now.
I was in your spot in August. So this is my son. I have a 33-year-old brain-injured son, and due to the state of my finances, about 3.5 years ago, he had to go stay full-time with his dad because I couldn't support the both of us. So he is wonderful. He's the light of my life. He has a job and all that. And soon he will be coming back and staying with me, and he's actually babysitting Chester for me to be here today. My very first auction was in August with Ted's training. And I bid on 2 properties. I didn't get either one of them. I was very thrilled because I learned, and you're going to hear, and you've probably already heard, and you will continue to hear, follow the rules. And I followed the rules. I was scared to death. I didn't know what it was going to be like. Even though they told us, I still didn't know how it was going to be. And on one hand, I was extremely disappointed because I really wanted something. I wanted at least 2. And yet, at the same time, when I saw how it actually worked and realized that except for maybe 1 or 2 people in the room, other than the Ted.Thomas graduates or people that had been through this training, these people didn't know what they were doing. They overbid, they bought in the wrong parts of town, they did so many things wrong, but the worst part was how much so many of them overpaid. So while I was disappointed I didn't actually walk home with something in my hand, I was ecstatic that I had gone and what I had learned and that I didn't blow it. So that was my first experience. That was in August. These were the lessons I learned from seeing all those people. Follow the rules. Watch the competition and learn from them. You might learn some good things. You'll definitely learn a lot of things not to do. And don't be scared. I mean, it's a little bit nervous and stuff, but it's fun. If you are afraid to do it the first time, just go and attend the auction and see what happens. Watch what people do. And it's pretty cool. Follow the rules. Everything they're teaching you in here is very important. I did not follow some of the rules at that time. I didn't quite realize how important they were. And I didn't, do anything really seriously wrong. But had I ended up with a couple of different properties, I could have made some big mistakes because I didn't go to the property file, which is something that you do towards the end of what your research is you've got to go in there and see if there are liens that don't show up on the online records, don't show up in all the different other spots that you do your research, at least in Duval County, which is where Jacksonville is. Some counties might have every single solitary thing, but I think also maybe while you're learning, it's not a bad idea to go visit those county offices and check out the property files just so you know what they look like. And then I also learned, because of a few things I picked up there, to continue learning. And if you've had the opportunity to talk to the coaches and you're fortunate enough to get with a coach, go for it. Keep training, keep learning, and follow the rules. My second auction was this November. I bid on 5 or 6 properties and I got 1. I was so excited. It was a lot. And when I went out to put out my sign, I met the people who live next door who have been taking care of this lot for 42 years and tend to consider it theirs even though it's not. And they were shocked to find out that I had it and they wanted to buy it. I paid $1,535.74. You see my fees, so my total cost was, almost $1,600. The lot's appraised between $7,700 and $16,000. It's assessed by the county at $8,600. And my exit strategy at the time was sell it instantly. Buy low, sell low, get rid of it quickly. I still have this lot. So this is one of my mistakes. Follow the rules. I didn't follow some of the rules. I needed to check further into this property. I didn't have enough time, and I was running around the afternoon until every office closed, trying to get a hold of the people with the utility company and different things to find out what certain things meant about this property that I wasn't familiar with. And there are 2 different departments in Jacksonville, in Duval County, where all 3 auctions, what I have discovered is that the person who has this information takes that week as a week of vacation. So, learn what your land codes are, all those different kinds of things. The biggest mistake I made was falling for the neighbors wanted to buy it. And so I stopped there. I'm like, yay, they're going to buy it. Done deal. I'll finance it if I have to, all these other things. Just due to strange situations, these people could not get financing because they had never had credit before in their lives. And they're middle 50s. And they'd always paid everything in cash their whole entire lives. They'd bought land, they'd built houses and everything. So that was a little bit of a surprise situation. Have multiple exit strategies. I only had one. I was going to buy it and sell it. I knew you were supposed to have lots of them. I'd listened to Bob talk about this raw land and all this other sort of thing, but I couldn't figure out what else I could do, and I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. And continue your education. Continue. I now have this listed with a real estate agent. I am doing massive marketing as far as, the letters, the flyers, the signs, all that sort of thing. And the people who live next door are freaked out that somebody else is going to get what they consider to be their lot. I expect to close on it within this next month. And I will sell it for a minimum of $5,000, probably $6,500 because they waited so long to buy it. My third auction was just a couple months ago. This one was great. Now I'm getting better, I'm getting a little confidence and all that sort of thing. I did a lot of research, way more in depth than I had done before, and a lot of it came from getting information from other people. I got a couple of different websites to go to for figuring out values, because our values in Duval County are crazy, and they're crazy all over Florida and most of the country. Anyway, so I did all my research. I took the 1,000 properties, turned them into 89, and then I did my tour where I drove around to see the properties. And after looking at those 89 properties, they became 24. And then, of course, as I said, I went down to look at the property files. And then it became 11. I won the bid on 2 very good properties. This is the first property I bought. This is Beverly's house. It's a single-wide mobile home. It's an antique. When she moved into it over 20 years ago, it was 2 bedrooms with a bath and a half, and the half didn't work. She's been paying a semi-dishonest investor $400 a month for over 20 years for this house. She's raised all her children. She now has grandchildren in there, and she was losing her house. She's been paying the taxes, but she was paying it to these people who were supposed to be paying the taxes. Well, the man, I guess he was okay. He went into a nursing home 4 or 5 years ago. The daughter did not pay the taxes, which is how I found this. I ran into her when I was going down the street doing my property tour on Saturday. I did my tour on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I still didn't get all 89 of my properties looked at. I finally had to just write off some of the lots because there was no time left. But she comes out. She wants to know, why am I taking a picture of her house? And she comes out, and I said, are you the owner? Because I thought, well, she could be a renter, or something. Well, anyway, long story short, we got to talking, and I got the whole family history. And she's a sweet woman, very nice, street smart, but otherwise not real business smart or anything like that. Well, I told her to try to go down there to the tax collector's office, and Monday was a holiday this year. This was President's Day, so Monday was a holiday, so they were closed. And the auction was Wednesday, so she only had Tuesday. I showed them how to go online and find their property and all these kinds of things. And I said the only other alternative is pray that I get the property. And already I'm thinking, exit strategy, exit strategy, exit strategy. But I knew that I could sell it right away because of where it was, especially with what I was getting it for. Or if I had to, I could put a tenant in there. There were a lot of different things I could do. And so I ended up raising what I was going to bid on this. I was only going to bid about $4,500, $5,000 on it. But that's all it was worth to me because I know the values, I know the area where it is, and it was just like, I don't want to spend that much more money. Otherwise, I'm in violation of what Ted is teaching us. Something told me to raise the bid, so I decided I would go as high as $10,000 on this because I didn't want this woman to lose her house. I mean, she's really nice. And so I got it for my maximum of $10,000. And now this is the really cool part, you guys. This is where you're going to love this business. Okay, I paid $10,000. Doc stamps were $70, recording was $10. So I paid a total of $10,080. In less than 3 hours, I sold it for $15,000 to the person who gave Beverly the private loan that I was going to give her. It was very easy money. And she's making money. She's carrying back the note for Beverly at 15%. She added on an extra $750, and she's going to have money coming in, which is what she's looking for 5 years. So this was really neat. Beverly is ecstatic, so everybody wins, all 3 of us. So this was $270.27. Not quite as good as we saw a little while ago, but I thought that was pretty darn good. So, and all this happens, and I'm still learning. I don't feel like I really have learned but a tip of what there is to learn about this. The second one I bought is my duplex in Springfield. This is a historic area of Jacksonville, but you could not even walk through the downstairs because there are so many building materials in there. There's wood, there's plywood, there's cabinets, there's countertops, there's toilets, there's vanities. I mean, there's enough in there to have 6 bathrooms. The top unit is a 3-1, the bottom unit is a 2-1. It could be a 3-1, but the way it's set up right now. So this was very exciting, and it's a very unique area. I bought it for $7,588. I did have to put builder's risk insurance. Wow, is that expensive? I had no idea. I thought regular insurance was bad. It is assessed by the county at $87,000. Right now, the asking price on it is $43,750, so my profit potential is almost $35,000. I have a few different exit strategies for this. All cash I'm giving people a $15,000 discount if they close by the end of this month. I will carry back $10,000, or with a $10,000 deposit, I'll carry it back and finance it. That gets me the money out that I've put in, so I have more money to take to the next auction, and then it gets me interest, and I can do just like what Matt was talking about. I can actually make the payments on this thing lower than what the rent in the area is for. I believe that this is going to be sold in the next 2 to 4 weeks. I have 2 investors that are meeting with me on Tuesday. My very minimum profit will be about $15,000 in 3 months.
Puff was in a difficult situation and knew that she needed to have more stability in her life. Once she took action and started attending auctions in her hometown, Florida, she was able to provide herself with a life she dreamt of. Puff shared with us some of the lessons that she learned while attending auctions, and also shared some of the mistakes that she made at her first auction and the steps to avoid them. Our next special guest is Renee from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. He will be telling you about his experience at the Los Angeles County, California auction and how quickly the auctioneer moved. He will also share with you the mistakes he witnessed at the auction and how important it is to know the rules prior to attending the auction.
At each auction, there's somebody who has not followed the direction.
Tell us about that.
Okay, well, the funniest one was in LA. In LA, there's 1,872 properties that they want to go through in a day. So the auction goes like this. All right, this property is up. Do I have an open bid? Open bid. Next property. This property is up, $7,000. I have $7,000. 75, 77, sold. And we're on to the next property.
Wow.
And they did this for the first 5 minutes, and we went through about 20 properties. Property is sold. 3 more properties go through. The guy has walked to the front, told them, oh, I don't have the cash here. I need to go out to the bank machine. Rule, if you don't have the money to pay for the property, your card is taken away, you're banned from ever going back to the auction, and that's it. No second chances. Follow the rules. In Whatcom County, auction, property is sold, guy goes up to pay. He didn't read the rules. It says, he brought money orders, bank drafts. It says, put the bank draft in the name of the county. And they specify the wording of that name. What did he do? Put the name of the county and his name. Card is taken away. He is escorted out of the auction by the sheriff, never to come back. Ted kept saying, read the rules, follow the directions. I read the rules, follow the directions. And it's not just me. I have 3 other people who have all come to Ted's course, and all 4 of us go through these rules. And it's so important to have a second set of eyes going through the rules to make sure that you get it right. And I can't emphasize how important it is to have somebody working with you. Linda talks about team, and that was the biggest message I got at the course I went to with Ted, was make sure you have a team. You do have your lawyers, your real estate agents, or whatever, but also have people with you doing the research, double-checking things. If you can bring them along with you, have them look at the properties with you.
All right, so now let's talk about at the auction, the experience itself. Is it a little intimidating?
At the LA auction, you don't have time to feel intimidated or anything else.
So when I was teaching the class, I said that properties are going to go like that. Was that an exaggeration?
Oh, no, not at all.
So if you're not prepared, what happens?
If you're not prepared, not organized, and I actually saw it, somebody 2 seats over, their property came up. The property that they had been waiting for about 5 hours came up just when one of them went to the bathroom, the other person was there, the person came back and, hey, did our property come back? And the person goes, huh, what? Uh-oh,
It was already sold.
it was already gone. They were 3 properties past.
All right, what if I'm at the auction here and I'm selling a property and you buy it, but you got another one coming up, what do you do then? I mean, you're looking at a list, right?
If I walk up to the cashier and I'm paying for one property,
Yeah.
and I want to bid on the next one,
Yeah.
I bring my bidder card and I hold it up and I
So you're
make
giving
sure
this
he-
guy money and you're raising your hand over there.
Exactly. And I actually did that for one of the properties that I bought.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And so you bought, let's see, you spent $83,000. So you spent about 8 cents on the dollar.
Roughly.
Wow. 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 A little homework goes a long way, doesn't it?
It does. But what's most important is to follow the TED system, step by step, what the coaches tell you and what the people tell you. And you know what? I've done a lot of real estate in Canada, and it works great. But when you take a new system, start by knowing the system. Don't try and be creative until you've mastered the system. And his system, fantastic. That's why I mastered it.
Now, there's kind of a thing that people don't talk about in the seminars very much. You bought the property, but they didn't give you the deed.
Unfortunately, every county has different rules. For LA, 90 days before you get the deed. And there are some people who say, well, put a sign as soon as you bought the property and go out and try selling it. They have very serious fines for putting a for sale sign on somebody else's property. Even
Can't
though
understand
it's,
why.
even though it is yours, you've paid for it, until you actually get the deed from the county. Especially with myself, I'm Canadian, buying in the States. I really want to be careful of the man, you know?
That's
It's
good.
not
Isn't that
nice
good?
to
That's
start
good advice.
with
Good.
start with a fine, so I didn't start marketing the properties until we got the deeds, which took 90 days.
Now, were they pretty prompt in getting you the deed finally? Did they get it right at 90, or? you had
They
to
got
call
it
them?
almost to the day on the
Oh,
90th
so they were
day.
ready. Okay, well, that's good to know, okay, because I'm sure Crystal and Bob and people will tell you sometimes they don't get the deed to you quick enough. Okay, all right, there's another challenge when you make these kind of deals. And so have you tried to sell them yet? Or
They've been marketed, and on Monday, I got 10 calls on one of the properties.
how bad is that, right? All right. And so on the $1 million worth of properties, have you sort of forecast what you'll, I know you can't do it exact. Have you forecast what you'll gross?
Our gross will be between 400,000 and 600,000.
Oh, my God. Woo. Wow. Let's hear it from Renee, right? Man, that's great stuff. All right, so now there's one difficulty that nobody wants to talk about, and you're running into it now because the people are asking about it. So does this property have a clear title?
All of these 5 have clear titles.
Why do they have clear titles?
The foreclosure process, the county clears the title, so the mortgage, poof. Any other liens that are judgments, poof. The only ones that stay on are if there's a brush lien. One of the properties had one of those.
Let's
We paid
explain
for
that.
it.
Explain it.
So what happens is that in LA County, if you don't cut the brush, the fire department will pay to have it cut, and then they'll put a lien for the payment for the cutting.
The brush is the fuel for a fire. Once a fire starts in California, they can't stop it. It
Yeah.
just keeps going. So you got to keep everything cut all the time, or they'll come and cut it for you, because it's a fire hazard. And fire in California is like an earthquake. It's over. You can't stop it. You got to wait till it burns out. Okay, so that's good. And what about a quiet title action? Do you have to do that?
You don't necessarily have to, but you can. And Bob has a recommendation of somebody really good to use. And if I have to, I'll do that. If I want to hold the properties for longer, I can also get a mortgage on them. Lots of things that can happen. It all depends how fast you want to sell them. The faster you want to sell them, the lower your price, and the more marketing and more value you have to put into it.
Okay, good. Everybody write down quiet title action. Just write that down. And it's his name Ted Schumacher? Dave Schumacher is his name? And his Tax Title Services, still the company? TaxTitleServices.com. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Because if you do buy a property, he can get you the, help you with the clear title. All right. So you've had the success. I guess the question that comes to my mind, have you forecast a day when you will be a millionaire?
Yes, and it's always tentative because it can happen faster or slower.
Okay, so let's say it happens slow.
We're looking sometime towards the end of next year.
Renee shared with you how important it is to have a system in place when you're doing this business. With Ted.Thomas's guidance, Renee was able to purchase 5 properties in Los Angeles County for $83,000, and they are valued at over $1 million. We've learned in earlier lessons the importance of knowing the rules. Now you'll see how Renee attended a subsequent auction in San Bernardino, California, with only a few bidders present.
San Bernardino. It's a very nice city because I've been there to look at the properties. This was the 7th auction that we participated in, the 3rd one that we bought properties in, and the 1st one that it was online. So, know the rules. Each county is different. So I'm going to do a little bit of a contrast between Los Angeles and San Bernardino. What separates these 2 counties is an imaginary line. They're side by side. However, the rules are different in both. So you don't have to remember the rules before you go. You just have to read them when you're making your decision as to which county you go to, and then you read them before the auction to make sure that you follow them. So in San Bernardino, the deposit was $1,000. Great. We're able to do it online and just transfer the money. Great. I don't even have to go down to the U.S. except to put the money in a U.S. bank account, because it did have to be transferred from a U.S. bank account, which we did. No problem. Whereas Los Angeles, it was $5,000. And we had to travel there 2 weeks prior to give them the bank draft. So we've got the cost of a flight, so it gives the locals a bit of an advantage. So bank drafts are very important. I'm going to talk about how we use bank drafts a little bit later on. But my point here is that reading the rules tells you how to pay for the properties and when to pay for them. So the contrast between an online auction and a live auction is, first of all, the live auction, much more entertaining. You also get to see your competition and gauge them. This guy looks like he's only going to go up to that much. Okay, I'm going to bid a little bit more, right up to my maximum limit, and I'm not going to cross it. And you get the property. And like I said, reading the rules helps because not everybody does. So in San Bernardino, they had a first auction, May 21st. There was roughly 3,100 properties. Not all of them sold. However, we did buy one property for $9,700. I'll talk about the property later on, but we bought one property out of those 3,100. Then there was a subsequent auction. Again, it's different. Every county is different. This time, they announced the subsequent auction about 2 weeks after the first auction and sent an email to the bidders. That was the only notice. So does that mean there's going to be more people or fewer people at that auction? Fewer people. They didn't know it. I'm excited, especially when there was 1,580 properties. Opening bid, $100. Now, it's an online auction. The first auction, there was a property we were very much interested in. We didn't bid on it because we got one property and that was our goal for the auction. Another property that we didn't bid on, though, at the first one that we looked at, we liked, came up at the second one. We bid on it again because now instead of being an opening bid of $9,800 and it didn't sell, it was for $100. And it was a house. And at the first auction, it went for, it was opening bid at $9,800. So you never know what's going to happen at the auction. So it's always worthwhile to go and see, because you could have picked up that property for $9,800.
Because Renee had learned about leftovers and subsequent auctions from attending a Ted.Thomas 3-day auction preparation workshop, and he was paying close attention, Renee was one of the few bidders to attend a subsequent auction, where there were 1,580 properties being auctioned, starting at just $100 each. Mistakes like this happen all the time at auctions, because the county only sent one notice by email. There are only a handful of bidders. The investors who know what they're doing are the ones who will benefit. Now you're going to see a short segment with Ted.Thomas' advanced training program he calls the Intensive Business Growth System. In this clip, he'll be explaining the process of the auction and the importance of knowing the rules for each auction. Each county auction has their own set of rules, so you must be familiar with them prior to attending the auction. Ted will share a story about the lady in the red dress. Listen carefully. You don't want to miss this lesson.
Okay, let's talk about the rules. This is where people make the big mistakes. I mean, the big mistakes. So I'm going to show you some big mistakes right now. Every auction will have auction rules. This is an auction brochure. Okay, now this particular auction brochure was Orange County, not Florida, but New York. And the company that printed this, they show pictures of the properties in here that are going to be for sale. And I'll show you that in just a second. But in the front of it, they start out in the front of it with auction rules. And all throughout the book, they'll have pages where there's auction. So this brochure is just showing me pictures of the property so I could start my analysis. I downloaded this from the internet and then I printed it. But in the back of the book, they will put auction rules. You can't read it, but I'll hold it up to the camera. Okay. The same thing, you can find it all on the internet. Every bit of that is on the internet. So you can decide that you wanted to go to Sheboygan in Wisconsin. And you could, if that happened to be a county, and you could go to the county and you could find the auction rules for every auction. Now, do people do that? Not a lot of them. And they make horrendous mistakes. I'm going to show you a horrendous mistake right now. And I use this one because it's kind of pleasant to look at, but it was a difficult situation. This is Daytona Beach, Florida. What you're looking on the right side of the screen is the Atlantic Ocean. That's Daytona Beach. That's the part where they don't race cars, but you can see the car tracks going up and down. They still allow people to drive on the beach there. All right, so that's Daytona Beach. Behind all those condos is water on the left. It's the Intercoastal Canal. Now, I happen to live on the Intercoastal Canal further south, another hour and a half in the car south. All right, so these are condominiums that were coming up for sale. And this happens to be called Volusia County. So this is just an experience that I had that I'm passing on to you, and you'll get it, you'll forget it, and it's at your own peril when you do that. All right, now, so this auction is going to take place. So of course I decided to go look at the property. Well, it's a condominium in a high-rise. So, of course, I couldn't get in. These condominiums are worth, round numbers, $250,000. 250. You might want to write that down. So I headed up to the auction. I happen to be a cheapskate, so I want to buy at a rock bottom price. Then I want to buy it low, and I might want to just sell it low and make cash. What's wrong with that? Okay, I don't want to live on Daytona Beach. I just want to buy it, then I want to sell it. So I head off to the auction. But before I go, I say, well, my maximum bid on this one is going to be 20%. And I pretty much stay within my bidding. I stay there. So it's worth $250,000. So 20% of that is going to be 50. I said, you know what? Nice one on the beach like that. I'll bid 60,000. Okay, so I head up to the auction. It was held at the old county building, which is a real old building, probably 100 years old, on the courthouse steps, as you've heard about. So sure enough, it's a small group there, maybe 13 or 14, us, and the woman gets up and said, all right, do I have to read all the rules of the auction? And if you say no, she won't read them. She'll just start bidding. But if you say yes, then she'll read the property description. If you don't know the property description, you better start to get to know it, because she's selling it by the description. All right, so that isn't the mistake that was made. All right, so sure enough, I figured what I'm going to bid for this property. All right, so the property is going to start out. It's going to start out with a starting bid of $13,000, because that's the back taxes. All right, now I've already told you what the value is. All right, and I've already told you what I'm willing to bid. And so the bidding starts. And the bidding went as fast as I could snap my finger, it went. I mean, everybody wanted this particular property. So my bid's going to be 60. So the first bid was like 20,000. Then went to 30,000. Then 40,000. Went to 50,000. I said, whoa. And before I could say 60, someone else said 60. I said, oh my goodness. And then another bid came in at 63,000. 63. Okay, Ted's bid. Okay, and it was a woman. It was a woman in a red dress. She bid 63,000. All right, now let's go back to what we're talking about. I don't want you to miss what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what you see written in red on your screen. Know the rules. She doesn't have a clue on what the rules are. So I'll tell you what the rule is. The rule is, at this auction, at this time, that all you need to do to secure your bid is, if you're the high bidder, you have to walk up to the auctioneer, you have to hand her $200. She'll acknowledge your bid, and then within 24 hours, you have to come in with the rest of the money. So all she needs is $200. So the auctioneer says 63,000, so going once, going twice, going three times, lady in the red dress. Now when the gavel comes down, it's over. There's no more bidding, you can't do anything. So you just stand there and say, oh, I missed it. So the woman in the red dress walks up and she said, I need you $200. And the woman said, I don't have $200. And the auctioneer said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to get the $200, or I'm going to start bidding again. And so the woman, I think there was 12 or 13 of us, walked up to each person there and said, can I borrow $200? She got a no answer from everybody. A no answer from everyone. Then she said to the auctioneer, I don't have the money. So the auctioneer started the bidding all over again. I said, I'm going to get it this time. All right. So the bidding went 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, and it sold for 63,000. And it sold to somebody else, not to her. And the other person went up, gave the $200. They were done. That was it. And it was over. The auction was over. That was it. So this woman left $200,000 because she didn't know the rules. She just didn't know that she could have bought that thing for $200, or at least bought it for that one day, because she would have had 24 hours to come back and do it. All right. So that doesn't really make you feel very good to see something like that happen, but it happens every day. Now there's going to be people that are going to bid and have no intention of buying. They're just trying to get the property off the auction list. There's just all kinds of things that people do. So if you don't know the rules, don't go to the auction, because you might have a sheriff on one arm and a sheriff on the other arm escort you out, and you'll never be able to go again. All right, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you there's so many bizarre people out there that don't understand what they're doing. Now, on the internet, I watched an auction last week. I was at the auction bidding myself online, and on the first day, I got properties. The second day, I couldn't get within $30,000 of any bid, because two other bidders decided they were going to fight it out on the internet. They don't even know who each other are, and I'll bet neither one of them ever saw the property that they went to. And so they'll bid way too much. All right, so all this woman needed was $200, and she left $100,000 easily on the table. Now, anybody could have made money at that auction if you just thought about it. All they had to do is think about it. People don't think. They just show up and think it's going to happen. All right. So the whole key is, if you come to one of my classes, you'll hear me say it every hour. Know the rules. Know the rules. The people who know the rules end up doing quite well. All right. So where do you find those? All the rules will always be in the state statute. Statutes, the state codes and rules. Okay. So you know them there. And you can go to the counties. The counties will have the statutes and they'll have code sections, and they'll have many counties will have a law library. You can go right into the little law library and look up. Now they're not going to have a law library for all the laws. They're just going to have it for the county rules. All right, so far so good. All right, here's another thing about the rules. Okay, that happens to be King County, and you can download all those rules and read them as much as you want, and kind of get to know what it is and get to know how the auction's going to go. Will the auction in King County be the same as the one in Florida or the one in Texas? No, each one of those counties can have their own rules and have their own procedures and codes that they're going to follow. So you have to adapt to that county. The reason this is such a good business, if you were going to condense down all the knowledge that I have, I can tell you in 1 minute why this is a great business. Because the county only advertises the properties in their county. So all the people in the rest of the world don't know about it. Until the internet came along, and until we started making databases of this, the people in Florida, they never dreamed about going out of Florida. How could they find the information? But now that's all changed. Now you can buy in any county, sitting wherever you are, more than likely.
The lesson you just reviewed has been designed to guide you through the process of narrowing down the auction list from your home laptop or desktop computer, while stressing the importance of knowing each county's rules prior to attending the auction. You also heard from special guests Puff Darlin, Ted.Thomas, and Renee. They all shared with you their experiences at tax-defaulted property auctions and gave you tips and tricks and techniques to make your first tax-defaulted property auction experience smooth and easy. Coming up in Lesson 7, Coach Bob Schumacher will share with you the details on how he purchased a house for $2,000 and was able to resell it for $102,000. That's a $100,000 profit in just one deal. We'll also hear from success student Deborah Murphy, who purchases property online without ever leaving her home. Tune in to Lesson 7 to hear the details.